Now let's bring in Dr. Kobi Michael, a Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for National Security Studies and also former Deputy Director General of the Israeli Ministry of Strategic Affairs. Thank you for coming on. So tell us, we still don't know all the details surrounding this. Of course, this happening in the background of all the tension that's happening in the West Bank. But a firing attack against civilian buses, that is a tactic that we have seen quite a bit of from the Palestinians in the past.
Yes, I think that the details are less important in this regard because we have to see the broader picture. And the broader picture is that since at least May 22, we are in an escalation mode in the West Bank that began in Jenin district, in Jenin area, but penetrated with the time to the other districts and recently mainly in Nablus district and in the refugee camps in Nablus. And I will not be surprised if this attack was done by activists from Jenin area or from Nablus area, because it is very easy for them to reach to Road 90. And I think that this is part of the general atmosphere which has been created in the West Bank. And I think that we have to understand that we are facing a new reality.
Right. So the question is, sort of, in the long term, does this mean that Operation Breaking Wave, which is what Israel has been doing in the West Bank in the last few months in response to those terror attacks in March and April, will continue or maybe intensify? Because we heard Barbara Leaf, one of the U.S. officials of the Secretary of State in the Middle East, criticizing Israel for, or basically voicing the displeasure of the U.S. over Israel's continued activities in the West Bank. But with attacks like this, it basically means that Israel will continue those activities. So where is this all going?
I think that Israel has reached to the I would say to the dilemma horn, in the sense that it has to decide what will be the scale of the military retaliation in the West Bank, mainly in the northern parts of the West Bank. As you probably remember, I recommended in May that Israel will operate in a very wide scale militarily in Jenin district in order to prevent and in order to stop all the terror attacks from there. Israel decided to do it in a different manner by small commando operations, and this is the same mode that Israel continues with in the Nablus area. I believe that we have to understand that the infrastructures of the terror organizations in the West Bank and mainly in the northern parts of the West Bank became to a very critical degree that Israel cannot tolerate anymore. And taking into consideration the weakness of the Palestinian Authority that actually does not operate in these areas, and understanding the Iranian motivation with money and with other supports to escalate the situation, and understanding the level of cooperation between the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, Hamas, and the Al-Aqsa brigades of the Fatah, the Tanzim, we have reached to a stage where we are tackling a very wide terror campaign with very based or well-based infrastructures. And I think that we have to rethink about the Israeli response in this regard.
All right, Dr. Kobi Michael, Senior Research Fellow at the Institute for National Security Studies, thank you very much for coming on.
My pleasure.